Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. It's been a while. There's been a lot of Switch 2 hype in the air the past couple of weeks, but today we are talking about some rumored Nintendo Switch 1 games. Yes, we have a new rumor suggesting that the Switch has one major final game in the oven cooking up for us from a somewhat niche but beloved franchise. So today I want to read through this rumor and speculate with you all what that might be. My mind immediately goes to Tomadachi Life, but I know a lot of other people will think F-Zero or Star Fox. Or the issue with this rumor is that really every Nintendo franchise is beloved and a lot of them are somewhat niche, but that's what we're talking about today. What is the final major Switch 1 game going to be? Let's get into it. Alrighty, so this rumor comes from PH Brazil, who is a journalist. He has a podcast, the OX Podcast. In the latest episode of that podcast, he kind of dropped this bombshell on us and then later clarified on FamiBoards. I'll have the link to his podcast in the description down below, but also the link to his FamiBoards post as well. If you don't know who PH Brazil is, I think at this point we can pretty safely say he's at least relatively reliable, right? If we're trying to rank the reliability of these insiders, PH Brazil I don't think has really missed, especially when we talk about 2024. I mean, he was the one that kind of broke the dam on reporting that the Switch 2 would be released in 2025 and not 2024, like everybody for some reason thought. But also, he was the one who said that Nintendo was moving up their plans and would have a Nintendo Direct showcase of some kind in August, as opposed to September. So PH Brazil, while he doesn't have a ton of rumors under his belt, I would say what he has said has been accurate so far, which is why I definitely think it's worth giving what he says a look, taking what he says to heart, and at least considering the possibilities here. And hey, it's cool because we'll have closure on this within a month. Brazil is saying that it will be announced in the February Direct next month, which he's also saying is happening, right? We don't know with certainty that there will be a February Direct next month. I think it's a safe guess, considering we don't know much about the Switch 1 lineup for 2025, but he's saying there's a Switch 1 Direct, there's a Pokemon Presents, and in that Nintendo Direct, there will be a major game from a niche but beloved franchise. So this user summed it up here, Fabasa Guga, kind of just summarizing what he said in his podcast. He said, quote, he once again mentions both a Switch 1 Direct and a Pokemon Presents for next month, but interestingly, he mentions that we're getting more than just remasters, which is always good. I imagine that means it's not a mini. There's been a lot of talk. I tweeted out the other day. This popped up yesterday. There were some new listings for some My Sims games, and I tweeted out like, hey, this is definitely February Nintendo Direct material. And I got a couple comments being like, oh, this is going to be another partner showcase. It's going to be a mini. I think, personally, even like discounting all rumors, I think there's enough to talk about for it to be a full fat, 30, 40-minute Nintendo Direct, but that's besides the point. Reading on here, they said, when asked by his co-host if there's anything big in the Direct, he also mentions we're getting a somewhat big game, the final, quote, big game for Switch 1. He refers to it as somewhat niche, despite calling it a big announcement. He also describes it as a new version of a beloved series. Because of how it was said in the podcast, I'm not sure if he means the new game and the big game are the same. To me, it sounded like the, quote, big game is a port/remaster. And thankfully, Brazil clarified here. They said they're not the same. It's not a remaster. So whatever he is talking about, whatever final big game is coming to Switch 1, it's not a remaster. It is a new game. He also said down here, after reading this, I went back to read the post I responded to earlier today and realized I completely misinterpreted what he was saying. I just woken up, so apologies. Yeah, it's one game. I'm talking about a single new game in that podcast. There's no new version of a niche beloved franchise separate from a big final game. So Brazil is saying that there is a single final big game being announced in the February Nintendo Direct that is going to be a new entry, not a remaster, of a niche but beloved franchise. It's not two separate things. It is one in the same right here. Like, this is not two separate things we can expect to be announced. It's just one game that he's teasing will be revealed in that Nintendo Direct. Or at the very least, maybe I'm misinterpreting this. I feel like it's implied it will be announced in the February Direct, but maybe it's just a game he's heard about, and maybe he assumes it will also be there, but he doesn't know that for sure. Either way, he's saying there's one more big game for the Switch 1 that is in a beloved but niche franchise. Now, what could it be? That's what we're here to discuss. There's not much to go off there. That is a pretty vague statement. And what's interesting is when we talk about Switch 1 games, I mean, I still play my Switch. I love my Switch. I'm excited to learn what the lineup looks like for 2025 and beyond. We've been so focused on ports and remasters that I feel like a lot of us have kind of written off the possibility of new games. And I was talking about that on a stream, I think a couple nights ago, like, yeah, we're going to get mostly remasters this year, but I think they need to give us at least one new game on top of Metroid and Pokemon Legends EA. There has to be at least one more new thing. So what could that be? I mean, if we're talking about a niche but beloved franchise, I said it earlier, That's kind of the issue with this rumor, is that I think most Nintendo franchises are beloved, and certainly a lot of them are niche, and their niche franchises, I feel like, are even more beloved just because there's such like a diehard rabid fan base for them online. You know, Earthbound is niche but beloved, Kid Icarus is niche but beloved, Star Fox, F-Zero. There are so many niche beloved franchises that Nintendo has under their belt that, frankly, while it's a fun rumor to kind of speculate on, it doesn't give us much to go off of. But I will say, my heart immediately jumped to Tomadachi Life. And I know that might not be the game people are thinking when they hear this rumor, but I feel like it does make the most sense. I've been saying for a while now that Tomadachi Life feels like an obvious pick to be a Switch 1 game. Even in this period of like transition to the Switch 2, I feel like Tomadachi Life would really flourish on the Switch 1 with the Switch 1 install base. I've seen a lot of people looking at this rumor and talking about a new Fire Emblem. I don't think that makes sense because we're getting a Fire Emblem 4 remake, or we almost certainly are later this year, so I doubt there will be another mainline new Fire Emblem game on the Nintendo Switch. I also think that would be a major miscalculation, considering how poorly Engage sold comparatively to Three Houses. And then the other two that people are really talking about are F-Zero and Star Fox. Star Fox, I would say, is possible. I think Star Fox is definitely more likely than F-Zero right now. And don't get me wrong, I think F-Zero will get a new entry. I just feel like it's almost too soon after F-Zero 99. I don't know who would be developing it. Maybe Next Level could do it. But if we're getting a new F-Zero, or even a new Star Fox for that matter, I'll kind of just lump them together. I feel like those are games you would want to have on Switch 2. Those are games that could be very graphically impressive, and they would definitely benefit from the hype of a new Nintendo console release. Tomadachi Life has that baked-in casual audience from New Horizons already on the Switch. You have 150 million Switches out there. I think out of like every Nintendo franchise, the wisest choice here is Tomadachi Life, and I think it does fit that beloved but niche kind of label he put on it. Now, obviously, this is kind of subjective, right? That's part of the issue with this, but there's only one Tomadachi Life game. It sold extremely well on the 3DS, right? I think it sold like 6 or 7 million units. It's one of the best-selling 3DS games. I think it's the 10th best selling 3DS game. But there's only one entry, at least in America. So it is a very niche franchise overall. So maybe this is all copium because I want Tomadachi Life to get a new entry. But I really feel like where Nintendo's at with the Switch 1, where we're going with the Switch 2, F-Zero, Star Fox, even Kid Icarus, these kinds of things, you kind of want to put them on Switch 2. Those are like really graphically intensive, kind of more hardcore games, right? Tomadachi Life, or even something like Rhythm Heaven. These are things that maybe would work better on Switch 1 at this point, just because it has that huge baked-in audience. Not that F-Zero and Star Fox wouldn't benefit from that, but I feel like the benefits of a new console hype cycle for F-Zero or Star Fox it'd be more beneficial to those franchises than Tomadachi Life, if that makes sense. We already kind of know of a lot of remasters releasing this year. We've had rumblings of them, right? Kirby Planet Robobots is one that we've talked about quite a bit on this channel. Even before it was really rumored, I was talking about Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot maybe getting some sort of dual release. It looks like it might just be Planet Robobots, and that's one I certainly think will pop up in that February Direct. Fire Emblem 4 Remake, I already touched on that. I think that's a surefire bet for the February Direct as well. And I guess overall we could talk about that. February Direct, yeah, I'm gonna do like a more dedicated predictions video here in the near future, but I imagine we'll get that in pretty early February. I mentioned it earlier. I think it'll be a full-fledged, showcase. It's not going to be a partner showcase. It's not going to be a direct mini. There's honestly quite a bit to talk about. They need to really detail the new Xenoblade X content. They need to give a release date and new trailer for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Pokemon Legends EA will pop up in the Pokemon Presents. And that's actually where another issue with this rumor comes in for me. And this is pure speculation, but I was talking on stream last night. I was playing Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I was just, talking to chat, and we were talking about Pokemon, and I have come to the conclusion, based on just timelines and development timelines and that kind of thing, that I think we're getting another Ilka Pokemon game. Of course, Ilka being the team that did Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I think we're getting that. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, while it wasn't received the best by fans, it is the best-selling Pokemon remake they've ever done. So it would feel like a big wasted opportunity for money if they didn't do another remake, right? If we're looking at it from the business standpoint, why would you not have Ilka do either Black and White remakes or Gold and Silver remakes? I think there was the rumor Ilka was doing some sort of live service Pokemon game, so maybe that cancels it out. But I kind of feel like whatever Brazil is talking about here that would show up in a February Direct, I actually don't think it would be the final big game. I guess it might be the final big new game, right? But I do think there's a good chance that, let's say next spring, we get a Pokemon remake in like March for Switch 1. And I think that we could definitively say is like the final major Switch game. Even if it is a remake, it's still a game that will sell 10 million plus copies. Whereas, you know, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is going to sell what it sells. Pokemon Legends EA, we already know about. That's going to do extremely well. Those are 2025 games. I think Nintendo will want one major seller in 2026 for the Switch 1. And if they want to, you know, space it out perfectly, Legends EA in October, November, Black and White remakes in March or April, and then Gen 10 for the 30th anniversary as a Switch 2 exclusive holiday 2026. I feel like that works out pretty well, because I just cannot imagine Ilka's not doing another remake. That just feels almost impossible to fathom, honestly. So frankly, whatever Brazil is talking about here, I don't even really think it will be the final major Switch 1 game, but I guess it'll be the final major Switch 1 new game, if that makes sense. That's not a remake. Although, honestly, if we're talking about Tomadachi Life, I kind of question if they would even make a new game. Grezzo did the remake of Miitopia on Switch back in 2021, and they just remade it. They didn't make a new Miitopia, they just remade it, and they went absolutely bonkers with that new Mii Maker that's in the game. Completely changes the game, makes it a much better experience. The Miis and what you can create are so much better and, you know, higher quality. So I feel like not using that in a new Tomadachi Life game would definitely be a misstep, but also, I don't want this, right? I prefer a new game overall, although I would be happy if we got this at all, you know, just something, Tomadachi Life on Switch 1. I feel like it's likelier they would just remake that game, throw on that new Mii Maker, add some new content, call it Tomodachi Life Deluxe, and it wouldn't really be a new game, right? I don't know if Tomodachi Life needs a new game. That might sound kind of lame because obviously we want new games, but I feel like Tomodachi Life is one of the few franchises, one of the few games that honestly, you just need to add a little bit more content, add that new Mii Maker, and I think fans will be pretty happy with that. My other thoughts, or my other hope, I guess I should say, was Rhythm Heaven. Although, if Brazil's saying it's a big game, I think that immediately disqualifies Rhythm Heaven, because while I love Rhythm Heaven is like the niche of the niche. These games don't sell very well. They're not big budgets or really, like, they don't, I don't know, like, there's not even that big of a following. Rhythm Heaven's extremely niche. If we're talking niche Nintendo franchises, Rhythm Heaven is like one of the top dogs, you know? So I really hope we get a new Rhythm Heaven, and maybe we still do, right? If Brazil's saying there's one more big Switch 1 game, that doesn't necessarily discredit some more smaller new games, but I feel like saying big game and then it being Rhythm Heaven would not apply. As much as I want that to be true, we're so overdue for a new Rhythm Heaven. I feel like that can't possibly be what he's talking about, as much as I want it to be. I know a few months ago, there were rumors, I think from Nash Weedle, about a Pikmin spinoff releasing this year. Maybe it's that. Pikmin is definitely niche, and a new Pikmin spinoff, I would say, qualifies as well as like a big game, a quote big game, you know, depending on how you view that. But something with Pikmin in the title, that's a very niche franchise. It sells decently well, but it's not, you know, lighting the charts on fire. And a new entry in that, even if it is a spinoff and it's like a new exclusive to Switch 1 thing, maybe not a remake of Hey Pikmin, I would say that would also qualify. So maybe it's that, you know, if Nintendo really wants to keep pushing Pikmin and making it a bigger deal, maybe we see a Pikmin spinoff this year while they cook up Pikmin 5 for the Switch 2. That would honestly be pretty smart, kind of have a stopgap release there, just so that people are constantly thinking about Pikmin. I mean, if you look at it, there's been a lot of Pikmin over the past half decade, right? In 2017, we had Hey Pikmin on 3DS. In 2020, we had 3 Deluxe on the Switch. In 2022, Pikmin Bloom released. Then the following year, in 2023, we had Pikmin 1 and 2 HD Remaster, as well as Pikmin 4. So maybe 2025 is the time for them to release another Pikmin project. That could make sense, I think, actually. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling this whole Pikmin spinoff idea. That would be really cool. I don't think it would be similar to what Hey Pikmin is. I mean, maybe it'd be kind of similar in that vein. Maybe Arzest would do it. I hope not. I don't think Arzest is a very good studio. The games they've released are kind of mid, but some sort of like 2D side-scrolling Pikmin puzzle game, it does kind of lend itself nicely, right? Like, that is a good idea. I just think they could do a lot better than Hey Pikmin was. So maybe it's a Pikmin spinoff. Maybe that would be a good fit for what we're talking about here, but it's really hard to speculate. Either way, I'm very excited. I know some people will be disappointed that they're not putting all of their eggs in the Switch 2 basket, but as someone who just loves Nintendo and I love my Switch, as excited as I am for the Switch 2, and as you're going to keep seeing daily Switch 2 videos for the most part, I'm very curious to see what these final months and years look like for the Switch 1. What games does Nintendo view as better for Switch 1 versus Switch 2? Like, what do they think makes more sense as a Switch 1 game versus saving it for the Switch 2? I think it's just kind of an interesting kind of thought exercise. So if it is Star Fox, if it is F-Zero, if it is Rhythm Heaven, Tomadachi Life, a Pikmin spinoff, like, there's so many possibilities here, and no matter what, I'll be happy just because I think it's interesting to see what they choose to do, if that makes sense. And regardless, even if this Switch 1 game isn't any of those, and it is something else entirely, I do think we're in the era of Nintendo just bringing back every franchise, right? So I feel like, I mean, I didn't mention Punch-Out. Maybe it's a new Punch-Out game, right? Like, it could really be anything, but I do think we're in the era of Nintendo just reviving old stuff. We got another Code remake. We got a new Famicom Detective Club. We got a new Endless Ocean. I think we're going to get that new Golden Sun. I think we're going to get that Earthbound remake. We're going to get that new Punch-Out and F-Zero and Star Fox. We're going to see a lot more franchises come back on the Switch 2, I think. And that's very exciting. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What game do you think Brazil is teasing here? What games do you think we will see in that February Nintendo Direct? And when we're talking about like new games, what new games do you think make the most sense to be Switch 1 releases as opposed to saving them for the Switch 2? I would love to get a conversation going down below. Of course, last night I did stream Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. That VOD is up on the channel. If you missed it and you want to go back and listen to it, we were talking about Switch 2 and Nintendo stuff the entire time. We do talk about the February Switch 1 Direct and that as well. So if you just want to listen to more Nintendo talk while I play Donkey Kong, definitely check out that VOD, and follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my other channel at It's Amiibo. Until next time, folks, peace.